All right, guys, welcome to Wide Awake News Radio. I'm your host, Charlie McGrath, joined by the Eric Lovely on this Tuesday night, 29th day. Holy cow, January's almost done. 29th day of January, Tuesday. I think I said Tuesday twice. In case I haven't mentioned, it's Tuesday the 29th. If you're listening and not into the chat room, then head on over to the chat at wideawakenews.com. Wide Awake Radio microphone, take you right into chat. We have a good program lined up for tonight. Eric Lovely with me, hour number one. Hour number two, William Grigg. I don't know if he goes by William or Bill, but we have him listed as William Grigg. And you know, I've looked at some of his work today. Should be a great first hour and a great second hour. And again, I want to thank all the Rinse Radio listeners for tuning in tonight, and as you guys do every night, and then all the other folks listening to us on the different formats. Thank you for continuing to tune in and support the program. Eric, welcome back to the program. I got to quit saying that because you're here every Tuesday and Thursday pretty much. And how are you? I'm going to do this. Eric, how you doing tonight? Oh, let me make this announcement. You know, if you haven't seen the Eric Lovely, the Eric of the Lovely family, however we say that, you can, because he's live now. He's live on Justin TV. If you go to the chat room, wideawakenews.com, scroll down, you'll see a Justin TV link there. Click on that, and you can see myself and Eric do the program live, or you can just go to Justin TV, type in Wide Awake News, and they'll take you to the channel there, and you can watch us do this live. But it's nice to see you live for the second time that you and I have been on together live. I like your background. I like your background. I like your flag. Give us the history of that flag. For those that can't see it, he's got an American flag behind him, but give us the history on that, Eric, and describe it a little. And why is it different than our current? I know this is completely off topic, but I'm interested, so go ahead.
Well, no, I mean it's on topic with the things that I do, and it's on topic with truth. It's a bit of truth that should be eye-opening. If you go to, if you look at a few videos back when we used the still, it had the actual flag on it, and that is from the picture that was used. I don't know if Smart Scarecrow still has it and whatnot to show people, but you can also go to my YouTube page, and well, no, they stripped it out of the background there, but it can be made available to people. It was a picture from 1917, and people are confused when I show them that picture, and they don't even realize that the gentleman standing in the center of the 5-man team holding up that particular flag that you see behind me. The man in the center with the weird funny hat and the glasses is actually the President of the United States of America holding that flag up. If you go back in history and you look at the original customs agents, and you look at the original border agents, and you look at the Coast Guard, they actually flew and donned the very same flag on their uniforms, and still today you will find the Blue Eagle flag of the Coast Guard flies underneath of the American wartime flag, which you know as Old Glory. And when it looks like the flag that is behind me, except for the blue stars. It has a blue eagle. It has the crest of the United States. And what it stands for is civil authority. It stands for we the people are the authority. And people don't understand where that came to be, but if you go back and you look at the late 1980s, there was 2 or 3 senators at the time that were lamenting over the idea of adopting the red, white, and blue Old Glory as the national flag of the nation. And this may be a shock to some people, but through their process, you saw this flag created. This is the flag of the Republic. This was voted on by Congress. It was ratified in 1791. This was to fly over all civilian-controlled post offices, any type of civilian delegation. All of your militiamen and militia units would fly this along with a Gadsden flag or their own flag of choice. It has gone through many changes throughout its career. We are now to today's interpretation, as they have attempted to discontinue this flag from your thoughts and your mind and your history. And so what we've basically done is we took the original blue on white idea, and there are 50 blue stars for every state within the Union now represented on the new Republican flag. And that, when people hear the word Republican, it's not a party. You see, originally Republican meant you were a proponent of the Republic, and those who were Democratic became Democrats, and most people don't realize where these things come from. But I actually have a pamphlet. I wasn't ready. I could give you names and dates and so forth. But in 1791, the civil authority flag was passed. It was donned by Congress as the civil, representing the civil power of we the people.
It's called the civil authority flag?
Well, actually, it's called the civil flag of the United States now. That's what they have readopted the name. So you'll find it in what is most intriguing is you can go to Ron Paul. There was the original Ron Paul site for 2008 that sold all of his buttons and everything else, and this flag was also represented and sold at the same time. You can still purchase it. But I will tell you that the people that you when you fly it, officials and authority figures do not like it at all. And basically, what had happened is if you look at the picture in 1917, we were flying Old Glory because we had a declaration of war in World War I. And the signification of the president walking out onto the pier hand in hand with a few Asiatics and people from Germany and someone from the United Kingdom, the signification was that war was over and we were now casting down the military rule and rejoining the civil authority of the actual free people of the nation. That's why the picture was posted in the newspapers and was used, is because everyone at that time in 1917 knew what it meant. They didn't need a byline. They didn't need to understand what it meant.
It meant you were at war if you were flying Old Glory, and
Correct.
It meant you were in peace if you were flying.
It meant the war was over. Yeah,
Okay.
It really meant the war was over.
This is fascinating. You know what? I honestly, guys, I had no intention. I never talked to Eric about this. I just noticed that flag before, and knowing knowing Eric is a historian, it is a core that I would probably learn an interesting piece of history. Which, oddly enough, that's what I studied in school was history.
It's the basic design. If you actually look at the law and you look at the design behind it, there's a reason why it is exactly the opposite of the American flag, because the red bars, white is for purity. It is for the purity of our nation. The red bars moving from one side to the other means that we are in defense of that freedom, that we are at war. And just like turning the flag upside down, you are claiming distress or civilian authority, if depending on which flag you're using. So that is why the red stripes actually go from top to bottom. Okay, we could use the words vertical and horizontal, but not everybody knows what they mean. I realize that seems pretty simplistic.
They run vertically on that flag, correct?
On this flag, yeah.
Okay, so as I'm looking at you, and if you're on Justin TV, guys, you can see this, but behind Eric, I see the seam, and then to the right is the length, correct? The up.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you were hanging. If you were hanging it long ways.
It's actually hung as it would intentionally fly.
Okay. Yeah, and I found it. Since you gave the name of the civil flag of the United States, I found it, and it's now I'm gonna have to do some more research on it, but it's very interesting. So the white represents purity. The red vertical stripes, I call these, this is standing in defense of purity. Is that accurate?
Yes, it is. It basically says that.
And now we're being invaded by Yoda.
But basically, what it stands for is the civilian's authority over the liberty and the freedoms. And when you get into a declaration of war, this leads into a whole other conversation. You see, there is no commander-in-chief right now. Every military advisor, every individual, everybody on the news who tells you that Barack Hussein Obama is the commander-in-chief is a bull-faced liar and has no ability to dig himself out of that hole if you actually understand history. Because the only way, if you actually read the Constitution, the commander-in-chief is an empty office. And it sits empty until the president assumes that role by being given the authority from Congress. And how does he get the authority? Through a declaration of war. That is the only way. And then the office itself, you see, most people don't understand the reason why standing army is illegal. It's because understanding how we go to war, you will understand that there is no standing army and everything comes from the militia. Because the commander-in-chief office is only allowed to operate for 2 years, and then it goes directly to the review of Congress. They decide if they have to re-sign the declaration of war, if they want to issue 2 more years to the president to maintain that.
Yeah, and you know what? I know we were going to talk about some foreign affairs stuff. We can get to that. But I want to keep this going a little bit because what you're saying is is critically important. You can't build an empire if we follow the original Constitution. You cannot have this never-ending war footing that we're on if we followed what the principles of our founding fathers meant to hand down to us. We're going to be back with Eric Lovely, his cool flag. More Wide Awake News Radio in just a minute. Hang tight. All right, guys, welcome back to Wide Awake News Radio. Charlie McGrath, owned by Eric Lovely. I'm just having problems with words tonight, man. Having problems. I got the horse thing going on again. And I don't. Should I get into it, Eric? Should I say again what I said to you during the break and go down this road for a while?
I can jump in and maybe fast forward the idea that we're trying to present the largest message and the largest front that people are not alone, and we're trying to help them understand that there are going to be tragedies, there are going to be bad things, but that there are people who are siding with them. And,
right.
You talked about Utah and the 23 out of 31 sheriffs who signed a letter telling the president that they were going to uphold their oath of office. But, we can go even further than that. There are now 7 sheriffs in Colorado, as we are working diligently to speak with about every sheriff that we can, email them, whatever way we can contact them. You have 16 sheriffs now in Texas that have stepped forward. You have 30 out of 33 sheriffs in the entire state of Missouri who have stated. Now, Missouri and Colorado and Texas, they're the bright spots right now because they have all signed the same letter to Joe Biden, his gun control panel, and to the president and to the White House itself. And basically, unlike some of the states where they said, well, we're not going to follow through with this, these particular sheriffs, so if you guys are in the state of Missouri, you got something right. They said that they would literally carry out their oath of office and lay their lives on the line, and every deputy in their department would die before the gun control would be enacted. So in other words, you have sheriffs who are literally filing rank more with someone like me. They've come to the conclusion and understand that this is a life or death struggle, and they realize what's coming. Now, if you have sheriffs of an entire state and rapidly becoming every state in the union has at least 5 sheriffs or 5 counties that are saying, well, we're going to shoot and fight to the bitter end. If someone says something like that, you have to realize that they see it coming. Okay, they aren't just blowing hot gas out the window. They actually see it coming. They see the militarization. If you look at the different letters, they talked about the militarization of their departments. You have Delaware sheriffs who are now up in arms because most people don't realize within New York State, within New Jersey, and within Delaware, the federal government has attempted to meet with their congressional houses to strip sheriffs of all arrest powers, to strip sheriffs of all ability to defend their county, and basically you can't do that. Okay, that is a paramount. That is an act of treason. Okay, there has to be an actual state ratified amendment because the sheriff is actually part of the Constitution. The sheriff is an elected office. He is your line of defense against. He's the last line of defense besides your own weaponry against you and the federal government or you and the local government. So what they're attempting to do to sheriffs and undermine their ability to work together, you have some Department of Homeland Security individuals as well as CIA agents and individuals starting to say that they need to exclude the sheriff's office from their meetings, that they need to exclude the sheriff's office from their proceedings. Really, when we said there isn't a whole lot going on, there really is. You actually have benefits now being paid out to 9/11 rescue workers, which means under the radar in the cloak and dagger of night, they haven't admitted to actually what the actual wrongdoings were. But the federal government at least admitted that there was wrongdoings that took place, and they are now going to pay them, and they're going to pay 10% of the settlement to these individuals. So the government is actually, they're in panic mode. And let me make this very clear. You can believe anything you want about your government. However, if I and these other sheriffs and other individuals are correct in calling them Fabian Marxists, which many, many people are now completely understanding that's exactly what Obama and his administration and the Republican and Democratic Party is. If we are right, when they start to scatter like bugs, they aren't going to scatter. They're going to attempt to stomp out what they don't like to maintain power. They're going to attempt to take as many people with them. If they see themselves on the way out, they're going to do as much damage as they possibly can Why? And why am I saying this? Is because look here. When their bosses who live overseas, they live in dumbs, they live in gated communities with armies that protect them. If the government completely implodes and destroys America, it will affect them not at all. Okay? They won't care. The only thing they're doing is they will be seeking revenge. And people don't understand that that's the actual mindset behind all of this, because they don't want to look at history and understand that that's what the Fabians said. They said, we will be back. When we booted them out of this country, they said, this isn't the end of the war. A king may agree with you now, but Rothschild said, do not worry. Kings come and go, and the family is forever. And people need to understand that he meant it, that kings were going to fade and die, and forever they would hold revenge in their heart to destroy what America was and what it was meant. Now, granted, they succeeded their mission 80 short years after America came into birth. But the message that I want to represent to people is that, the Republic, on paper and in the courts and in your world out in front of you, your Republic has passed. Now, if the fire is within you, if you believe in your heart, your mind, your body, and your soul that the Republic needs to have life support and air breathed back into its body, if it is time for the tyrants to be ground asunder under the boot heel of freedom, okay, then the Republic still exists, because the Republic never was about paper. The Republic was about ideas. It was an ideology, a way to live your life, a way for common people to enter into voluntary contracts, voluntary society, and to be able to control their society around them. So I think we can fix this.
Let's keep it going after the break. A couple more things I want to touch on that, especially I described this fog that we see right now, this fog, haze, lull, whatever, this momentum that seems to be waning. We're going to get back with Eric Lovely, more Wide Awake News Radio in just a minute. Guys, welcome back to Wide Awake News Radio. Charlie McGrath and Eric Lovely continuing the conversation. And during the break, we had planned to talk a little bit about what was going on overseas, what was going on with immigration. And Eric, you were during the break drawing the reasons for a push for immigration now, rather than, we have gun control, then legislation going into immigration, but it's all staged, it's all an agenda, it's all been talked about before now, and now they're just going to get to this next point in the agenda. But before you go on explaining your point of view on that, I did find it very interesting that the Republicans, in the one-party system that plays like two, are I read this yesterday. A couple things. The only way they're going to go along with some kind of immigration deal where the conservative number of 11 million illegal immigrants are going to get amnesty in one form or another, right? They're going to have to register, vote, pay back taxes, blah, 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 and they could become citizens. But the one thing that that's being demanded that is barely being talked about at all, hardly any coverage on it, is a massive buildup of drone aircraft in order to enforce the border between the United States and Mexico. And that sounds innocuous, right? That sounds like, oh, what a great idea. We need cameras. We need cameras flying around on the borders so that we can protect ourselves from illegal immigration. But we got to remember all those videos we've seen. I live in Montana, Eric. I'm approximately 400 miles from the Canadian border. I still see Border Patrol agents. 400 miles.
Well, believe it or not, Charlie, you fell under the marker by 15 miles to have drones actually flying over your house right now.
There you go.
It's 385 miles. They've already given them carte blanche, 385 miles from the border inward, and that means any border state, any of the northern border states at all.
Understand what that means. The majority of the population that has been taken out of the heartland and has been taken out of rural existence so we could shove them into big urban areas will be surveilled from 30,000 feet by a Predator drone that some fat cat and some Raytheon or some other defense contract company is going to become fabulously wealthy on. And, the money he spends in D.C. to get these drones in the air is going to be well spent on his part. And you will be surveilled with technology that we don't even understand at this point in time. They'll be able to tell how much energy you're using. They'll be able to tell what time you're home, what time you're not home. They'll be able to tell what you spent your money on. They'll be able to tell when you're driving your car down the road. They'll be able to tell when you go into McDonald's, get yourself a burger. They'll be able to tell everything, anything and everything they want to tell just by a passive surveillance system with 380 miles in from the coast of the United States on both sides and the borders on both sides. I don't know what, Eric, maybe you know the percentages, but I've got to think that's well over 60-70% of the nation population.
Yeah, it's actually, believe it or not, 90% of, well, actually 93% of the individuals live in major cities. And if you take out all of the major cities in the center of the state, which in other words are not a border state, and let me tell you what, you don't have to border another country. If you border the ocean, then you are considered a border state. So New York and all the East Coast guys, California and the few other Western states
Washington,
that are touching,
Oregon, California.
yeah, you're all considered border states, and therefore you have given up already, 385 miles worth of your territory and airspace. But the whole idea of that is they're leaving it at just under 400 miles because they think that they can line the border state exterior of the nation by 2016 with the smart grid. And what will allow these drones to do is a super high broadband data burst, where these drones will fly over, and then at a moment's notice, anywhere the drone is, they can lock their GPS coordinates into the smart grid and pull up what's called a smart grid map. And what the smart grid map does is it shows not pictures of your home, it shows in an energy format how much this node's energy is being used, how much data is being transferred to and fro from this node. They can access the node and have it highlighted so that them sitting in their cozy little office can then get a screen full on one side of, well, what is this person supposed to do? Oh, they're 60 years old, so why are they using this much data? Why are they using this much energy? And then a team of individuals will then be dispatched to your home to answer those questions and vet you as to what things are going on. It is to track the flow of all information and data going every which way. And you know, people think that this may be far-fetched with them having a huge recruitment pool for these military service jobs and these new policing jobs. But really, if you look at the way it's organized, the U.S. president, supposedly, according to executive order, according to the NDAA, and according to the Patriot Act, all rolled into one, now have the argument where the president can take control of anything he so chooses, in other words, for national defense.
Resources,
so in other words, if you also look at another executive order where he transferred customs and immigration and the FBI and the CIA, he transferred through executive order the regulatory powers away from Congress unto himself. So now what does that mean? Well, the man simply thinks, and now again, this is my opinion, I cannot prove this last part, but what is to keep him from saying, okay, here's an executive order. Any of you Hispanics, any of you Cubans, or anybody who's raided the border, you want instantaneous citizenship, you want an instantaneous job, sign right here on the dotted line for 2 years of service, and then these people fall right into file, rank, and line, right into their offices, and they say, okay, no problem. With your amnesty and your instant citizenship, we're going to guarantee you, 5 humanity cards for you to start bringing your family over through the process. And all you guys have to do is run these drones for 2 years. And these individuals don't even have to fire, There can be an automated system. It's already set up when, for a command bunker or a command group to fire all of the drone weapons or impact weapons or deploy people to where the drone operators have no idea what's actually going on the ground. So, they'll be able to see it through their cameras, but, they say, okay, I found X, Y, and Z in this sector. Then they're simply going to be told, well, fly on to the next sector, and command will deal with the issues that you highlighted. Oh, no problem. So they fly their drone in the next sector, they send in the troops, they take care of the dissidents, do an investigation, and so forth. I mean, the reality of what is coming, George Orwell would probably have some type of ecstasy moment upon himself.
Absolutely. He was like, whoa, I'd be stretching to write this, and here it is. The executive order, which you can look up, is 13603, and it's a National Defense Resource Preparedness executive order. That's the one. I do believe that's the one you're referring to.
That would be the one that I'm referring to. However,
Yeah.
there are 5 or 6 others floating around there that people aren't even looking at. You can actually go to the site. I think it's govtrack.org, but I'd have to pull it up. But there are several sites where you can actually read all of the executive orders that Obama has passed, and people really should spend the time because it should be an eye opener. He has made himself really at any time he so chooses now, anytime he wants to, he can simply put a crown on his head and call himself king. And there really isn't, Congress isn't going to do anything. They've already abdicated their role. They have allowed the executive orders to go through. They are not talking about impeachment. They're not passing bills frantically to attempt to take away his power to do such things when he stripped the Congress down from its 500-plus man body to 12 people. Not a peep, not a word. Nothing took place.
Keep going. All the National Defense Authorization Act, nobody said, and it isn't just Obama. I mean, the stage has been, the pyramid is being built this whole time.
Well, through the National Defense Authorization Act, as well as the resource, and as well as the Kyoto Accords and the issues done with the UN, the Council of Governors has already been assembled. The 10 governors who have agreed to take over the 10 different sectors of the nation under this grid-like pattern have already been, set forth as to be hand-selected by the president. You already have 10 governors right now that have been meeting with him, called the Board of Governors. Well, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Those governors have already agreed to sell you out and swear their allegiance to the new king.
Holy cow! We went through the long segment. That was quick. All right, we're going to be back. Final segment with Eric Lovely, unless he wants to hang out with us for the next hour. But we're going to be back in just a few minutes. Please hang tight. Okay, welcome back to Wide Awake News Radio. Charlie McGrath, Eric Lovely. Final segment of this hour. Eric is going to be leaving us. Maybe he might hang out. He looks pretty comfortable in his secret log cabin location with the cool flag behind him. But coming up in the second hour, we're going to have William Grigg on the program. So hang out and listen to what William has to say. I've not interviewed him before, but I've been to his site today, and he seems like he is going to fit right into this program, talking about the build-out of the police state. And we're going to talk about what I'm going to talk about is one of the articles he had on his sites was a sheriff who is putting out the front of how he is going to not enforce any federal laws impeding or destroying or sacrificing the Second Amendment. Yet, in his own county, there's all kinds of unconstitutional acts occurring. So this we'll get into in the second hour. But Eric, last segment here. I found my notes from that video I put out last night, and I know we're going to talk. We want to talk about before the end of this hour. Ladies in combat zones.
Not you, Charlie. Keep
Okay. I'm like, well, wait a minute. I didn't know if there was somebody pointing a gun at you or what. Females in combat. We're going to talk about that before the end of the program. But this video I talked about last night is Second Amendment, guys, and there very well could be a whole slew of videos I put out on this topic because it is, I believe, going to be the make or break. I mean, seriously, I couldn't say it in any clear English. The make or break topic for this nation is this Second Amendment. I think there's going to actually be people that are paying attention to what's going on with this debate, this argument, that we're not paying attention up until this point. Eric, does that make sense to you? There's a lot more people, I think, that are going to, I said last night, most people could care less about finance. Most people could care less about how the dollar's made. Most people could care less about what's happening behind the closed doors in waging war around the world. And it's sad to say, but I believe it's true. Most people have their head down, going forward and enjoying pop culture, enjoying whatever gladiator games are put before them. But I think this issue is going to be one that is going to be impossible to ignore unless you're just so sold out into the system that you're just like a drone looking at the TV saying, yes, I must give up my guns.
Well, we'll have to see. I think that you have an awakening that's taking place, and I think that the people in their communities, everybody who's listening, no matter what community it is, you should be calling down to the sheriff's office and making an appointment. You guys should be spending your time sitting on his doorstep saying, okay, how do you feel? And then be very clear to tell him that, if you don't feel like we do, then no matter what we have to do, you will be gone. We will put someone in your place, and we will put the badge on their chest, and we will anoint them to carry out this process. And you see that happening. You see more sheriffs now, individuals, communities understanding that being a sheriff isn't about being a career policeman. It's about understanding the Constitution and understanding what law is in this nation. And I think that you're completely correct. It's a very hot topic because you have individuals of intelligence who are saying, okay, we stood here, we let you mess with the banking system, we've let you mess with the money, we've let you mess with everything else, hoping that you would just stop, hoping that things, aren't as bad as the truthers tell us it are. And now, on top of it, they have been so emboldened that they have tried to execute a double whammy of immigration and gun confiscation, coming in right behind it. And you have a lot of intelligent people saying, okay, look here, we've had enough. We're not dealing with any more. We're not sure we agree with the truthers and the movement of freedom fighters, but we no longer agree with the federal government. And that is colliding with two other groups. One being our movement and our group, and two, with individuals who are looking at the situation saying, okay, you've taken my job, you've taken my home, you've taken any chance for me to dig myself out of this hole, and now you want to take the last piece of thing that I have that belongs to me. You want to take my ability to defend myself against the jackals. You are throwing me to the wolves. So these three groups
you want to make me utterly dependent, utterly, totally. Look, they can take you. You can lose your job. You can lose your house. You can lose the money you have in the bank. You can lose any semblance of control of your financial destiny. But if you are still a free individual and you have a way to defend yourself, you still have something of value that they want to take, which is break that will, break that freedom. You can still go out and you could provide for your family, putting food on the table. If you have a weapon, you can defend what you have left. If you have a weapon, you can change the course of the direction of your city, county, state, country if you are armed. If you are not, then you are nothing but meat for the grinder, period. Plain, simple. You're labor. And, all this, forget about FEMA camp. The nation becomes a FEMA camp. The nation becomes part of the prison industry. Everybody is nothing more than a number, a cog, a sequence. They're nothing more than what the government tells them they are. If you do not have the ability to express yourself in the ultimate act, Eric.
Here's what I'll tell you. And granted, this was an outside source that was invading. But let's look at the people from Holland. Let's look at the Polish. Okay, everybody makes fun of the Polish, and the reason why they scorn the Polish and the Polish nation so badly. If you actually go back to World War II, you see, as Hitler invaded, the Polish people, oh yeah, they lost in 2 or 3 days. They were completely massacred. But what did the Polish people do? In sight of all terror, in sight of complete and utter annihilation, they rode out on horseback with swords, okay, and bolt-action rifles to meet Tiger tanks head-on. Because the Allies said, give us a week, give us 4 or 5 days, and we will do the best we can to evacuate you, to do what we can for you. And you know what? The people on horseback lasted for 3 days. And they realized that there can be no arms. Because if you look at the Hollanders, when they went in, they didn't last 3 days, okay? They lasted approximately 18 hours. And the reason why is because they rode out in the field on their horse with pickaxes, with shovels, with hoes, rakes, swords, medieval body armor, and they were simply obliterated. They were expunged from the battlefield so quickly that there was almost no point of being there. They have learned from history that they must disarm you. Okay, well, because you outnumber them, and if you have an equal force of arms, there's nothing they can do because you have more numbers. So they're always at a disadvantage. They're even at a
which
disadvantage
is incredible
now.
Listen, I'm going to prove. You know what? We're going to take somebody right out of the mainstream that's going to prove with their own words that you're 100% correct. And I shared this last night, so sorry if this is redundant to some. But in the video I put out yesterday, I attached another video, which was Mark Morrell, National Urban League president, along with Al Sharpton being interviewed. And Mark Morrell comes on and he gives all the talking points on why we need gun control. Too many children are being killed. Too many funerals are going to. Too many drive-bys. Too dangerous. You know, we have to show makes me sick to say it, courage to go ahead and strip the people of their Second Amendment. And when he was done, to put some validity behind it, even though Al Sharpton's not a political figure, he certainly is a host on CNBC, and he has a lot of momentum behind him. He came on and said, exact quote, or paraphrasing closely to the exact quote, look, the Second Amendment was put in place to protect yourself in case the government came to attack the people. This is Al Sharpton's words. He knows what it's about. He knows what the Second Amendment's about. But then he goes on to say, first of all, if the government came to disarm you, you don't have a machine gun to defend yourself. And be real, we're living in the age of drones. They would just use a drone to enforce their will. So the Second Amendment doesn't do you any good. Two things there. One, he's making a case for why I should be able to buy a drone if I want a drone or a machine gun or whatever. But secondly, he's trying to tell you that you do not need this antiquated Second Amendment anymore. But they understand totally what it's about. It ain't about hunting. It ain't about trap shooting. It's about defending yourself. And
if you look at his words, what is he trying to convince you? That if you resist, you can't win.
You will die.
That's what he's telling you. However,
that's exactly what he said.
The problem is if you look at from a military mindset, they do not have the supply routes. They do not have the manpower. These people have to sleep somewhere. There has to be forward bases and command centers set up. There must be power sources for all of them. It's a logistical nightmare. He is bluffing. Okay,
yeah.
He is bold-faced,
look at Afghanistan.
Staring you down.
Look at Afghanistan. We've been there a dozen years. Look at, and we have the most high-tech weaponry the planet has ever known. And we're losing. We're losing in Afghanistan. We're losing. Russia or the Soviet Union lost in Afghanistan. They had the most technically superior army the world had ever known. The world's #1 superpower, arguably, at that point in time. They lost to the Afghanistan. A group of individuals armed, and I don't care if it's the up in the Hindu Kush with muzzle loaders. A group of guerrillas are a very, very viable, powerful force, regardless of what century you plop them into. So you do not want the ability for people to take action in their own hand with an AR-15, a 30-round magazine, not because it wouldn't do you any good because there's drones flying around. No, because it's a legitimate threat to the powers that be.
And you have to realize, other people understand, if you go back in time, okay, and you actually physically look at history, and you understand arms being a status of ready to commit warfare, you will find that there were neighborhoods that the whole entire neighborhood, they were a militia, but they were a specific kind of militia because they all owned privately owned artillery pieces. Okay, they had their own smelting balls where they could make their own ammunition for their artillery. They had the artillery wagons. They trained. These were farmers who came together to make up an actual artillery company. And this is the mindset of the original individuals who agreed to the Bill of Rights and Constitution. It's because they were an army unto themselves.
Absolutely. When they framed this Constitution, when they framed and wrote the Second Amendment, there was a lot of debate and a lot of argument that went into that before they wrote that amendment, that one sentence amendment to the Constitution. It wasn't about sporting clays and hunting. It was about protecting freedom. And being able to protect freedom means you can defend yourself from tyrannical government. Eric Lovely, you're welcome to hang out. You don't have to answer right now. When we come back, we're going to be joined by William Grigg and talk about his websites and get his point of view on this build out of the police state. We'll be right back with more Wide Awake News Radio in just a few minutes. Please stay tuned.